Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Just want to say thank you real quick to everyone who tuned in to our very special vinyl collection live stream yesterday on the Metal Meltdown. 'Twas a blast. We talked about lots of records. We had many drinks, did a bunch of silly shit. I assume, if we're being honest, I'm recording this ahead of time, so I don't really know how the stream is gonna turn out. But I do know that I'm grateful for every motherfucker that tunes in, and if you didn't, no harm done. It's going to be archived right here on the Metal Meltdown. I'll even put a link to the full video in the description of this one. Why? Because I care about you, and I don't want you to miss any of the super cool stuff we do on this channel. You're important to me. I got you covered, dog. Whatever. Moving on. It's the end of July and the beginning of August, which means it is time for a brand new Albums I Missed video. Now, truthfully, I don't really feel as if I missed a whole ton of stuff in the past month. I feel like I definitely covered some of the more interesting or noteworthy releases, but as per the norm, there is always stuff that simply slips between the cracks, so our goal today is to talk about the cracks. Actually, I'm not really sure I like how that description sounds. Oh well, I don't care, and I got shit to do after this, so without further ado, brand new Albums I Missed video for July 2021. Let's fucking go! First up, we have Parabellum, a brand new studio album from neoclassical guitar legend Yngwie Malmsteen, and oh my god, this thing fucking sucks. It's been a while since I really paid attention to Yngwie's material, and honestly, I've never been a gigantic fan to begin with, so I wasn't expecting a whole lot, but I at least expected it to be competent, to be adequate, to be not painful or irritating or just remarkably hilariously mediocre. You know, Parabellum. I mean, holy shit. Everything about this album culminates in nothing short of a clumsy clusterfuck from hell itself. The production is fucking awful. Everything sounds muzzled and really quiet. The guitar work is insane, which I guess is expected, but it's also completely nonsensical. I have no idea what's actually happening. It's a bunch of random shredding and tapping and super technical bullshit for the sake of it. It is the definition of pure guitar wankery. There's not a single hook on the melody that's really all that interesting or engaging. The songwriting in general is just really bad. For a guy as intelligent as Yngwie, you think he'd be capable of writing like a semi-decent fucking dad rock tune at this point in his fucking career, but I guess not. And my god, Yngwie himself as a singer is fucking terrible. This is the level of quality I expect from like the American Idol audition tapes. He doesn't sound much better than my uncle doing karaoke at a bar on a Tuesday night with one too many fucking zombies in his system. Yeah, this was just fucking terrible. One of the worst albums of the year in my opinion. I fucking hate this thing straight up. Next up, we have Coffin Up the Nails, a compilation record from Misery Index, bringing together a bunch of old tracks from old demos and EPs, some alternate cuts and remixes of some of Misery Index's biggest and most popular cuts, some unreleased tracks, a couple brand new songs altogether. It's vicious, it's nasty, it's wild, it's a little generic and maybe a little too primitive for its own good at times, but ultimately still a very fun record. I do find myself preferring the demos to the remixes personally. I just like how much more gnarly they sound while still being pretty tight and uniform, but there's really not a single dull or mediocre moment to be found on here. I'm especially really enjoying the MOD cover of Man of Your Dreams featuring Rob Barrett from Cannibal Corpse. That's fucking banging. We need Cannibal Corpse and Misery Index to tour right now, just so this freak collaboration can happen on stage live and I can get my fucking teeth kicked in. It probably wouldn't change your mind if you weren't already a Misery Index fan, but Then again, I don't really feel like Misery Index is making this to appeal to the uninitiated. They're making this for the fans, and the fans will be absolutely elated. I'm certain of it. Next up, we have Congregation Pestilence from Drawn and Quartered. These guys have been kicking around in the death metal underground for quite a few years now. They're pretty much masters of, like, technical, brutal death metal at this point, just consistently spewing, vomiting out this hyper-insane, high-octane death metal buffoonery. And Congregation Pestilence is no exception whatsoever. It's tighter, bigger, bolder than anything else the band has ever made. This thing is so fucking mean, I swear to God I wouldn't have been shocked if at some point Drawn and Quartered just jumped out of my fucking speakers and beat me up and took my fucking lunch money. It is inherently, almost by design, an extremely one-dimensional, derivative, and predictable record, and the hyper extremity can become a little overwhelming as bass and guitar and drums and vocals just kind of blur together into one assault of gutturals and sonic mayhem. But I highly doubt this is going to deter the Drawn and Quartered fan base, and I highly doubt it's going to deter anyone looking for just super nasty, in-your-face brutality, so fuck it. I mean, even a cold-hearted, brutal death metal cynic like myself still got some enjoyment out of this, so that alone should frankly speak volumes. Next up, we have a cult that worships a god of death from the Grasshopper Lies Heavy, which is, without a doubt, the most chaotic, ominous, and uncomfortable piece of sludge metal I've heard in recent memory. I mean, everything about this album, from the lyrics to the production to just the chaotic presentation, is so genuinely eerie and disturbing. The album is constantly swerving in and out of angular and chaotic rhythmic patterns, agonizing, tormenting vocals, disgusting, sludgy guitar riffs. It can be genuinely overwhelming and agitating at times. It's hard not to want to just step back and kind of go, "Whoa, buddy, calm down. Please and thank you. Okay." But it's also remarkably captivating. I mean, I was really drawn into the pure, utter insanity and darkness of this record. Is it something I'm going to come back to a lot? I don't know. It might just be a little bit too weird and all over the place, even for a guy like me, but I definitely really enjoyed it. And I think anyone looking for some really agonizing, unpredictable, disturbing sludge metal is going to just love the ever-living shit out of this. Next up, we have Celestial Blues from King Woman. I almost reviewed this album, but I very quickly realized that I just didn't really have a lot to say about it. I mean, there's definitely a lot to appreciate, don't get me wrong. King Woman are kind of approaching, like, singer-songwriter music through, like, the lens of doom and post-metal and gothic rock, which I think it's pretty cool. Kind of reminds me of some spooky shit from, like, Chelsea Wolfe and Emma Ruth Rundle at times. Maybe even, like, I don't know, like a more doom metal take on Lingua Ignota, especially with the really painful, agonizing lyrics. But unfortunately, the music itself just isn't as dynamic or as gripping as so much material from the aforementioned Chelsea Wolfe and Emma Ruth Rundle and Lingua Ignota. In fact, it's kind of a monotonous record, continuously droning on these very melancholic, doomy passages with some mumbled vocals that bring to mind the worst aspects of, like, Nirvana and to some extent even Billie Eilish. It's just kind of this constant not only is it annoying, but it makes it genuinely difficult to actually piece apart what King Woman is fucking talking about, which is a shame because so much of what this album is about, from what I understand at least, is coming from a very real, emotional, traumatic place. I don't know. I think had I reviewed it, I might have given it a 2.5 out of 5. Yeah, that's about it, though. Next up, we have Give Us Life from Space Chaser, an album I've been mildly interested in. You know, I've heard some decent things about it, and it has actually been a really good year for thrash metal, with standout records from Evil, Enforced, Cryptosis, Paranorm, and a few others. So, yeah, I was kind of pumped, and then maybe kind of let down, like just a little bit. I don't know, I think I just expected something a little bit more progressive and exciting and ambitious, just based on everything I've heard and just based on the overall presentation of this band. You know, they're going for this very futuristic sci-fi image and presentation. You know, I kind of thought maybe with that in mind, this would be more in vein of something like Vector, but with maybe a bit of a emphasis on like old school thrash. It's still pretty fun, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of razor sharp riffs, plenty of piss and vinegar vocals and nasty drum beats and all that. All the stuff that all you crazy mosh monkeys are gonna love and just eat the fuck up. But yeah, I think I personally was just looking for something a little bit more exciting and dynamic. I don't know. To each their own. Next up, we have Dawn of the Primitive Age, some nasty blackened thrash metal from a band called Nuclear Revenge, hailing from Spain. The music is extremely one-dimensional, like whatever you picture in your mind right now as blackened thrash is exactly what this album is. But that's not a bad thing in this particular instance. Blackened thrash metal, at its absolute best, is a lot like pizza, or poutine, or a Batman video game. Even when it's bad, it's still pretty good. Does that make sense? I hope it does. What I'm trying to say is that it's greasy, it's nasty, doesn't waste time, and never stops swinging its fucking fist like a goddamn maniac. And that's ultimately what you want from your blackened thrash metal. Ultimately. And that's ultimately what Nuclear Revenge provide. And they do so with that classic 1980s sheen that makes it feel all the more authentic and vital and urgent. It's a trim record. It doesn't really waste any time. There's no filler. There's no interludes. It doesn't ramble on for an hour. It doesn't waste time with progressive avant-garde bullshit. It unleashes nasty, old-school hellfire, and then it fucks off to go eat pizza, poutine, and play fucking Batman Arkham Origins or whatever. That's it. And it's great. It's one of those kind of records. You either dig it or you don't. So, if you dig blackened thrash, you'll probably dig this. You do dig this. You don't even need to listen to it. You already like it. But go listen to it anyway, because it's fun. You know? This is definitely the most nonsensical part of this video. Definitely. I can tell already. Next up, we have World of Sorrows, the debut studio album from a Canadian one-man death metal band, Dungeon Serpent. I was made aware of this project by the one and only Wyatt X Him, who also reviewed this album, if anyone is interested and hasn't seen that video. And I've since spent a decent amount of time with this record, and it's a pretty fucking gnarly collection of classic Canadian death metal brutality. The music is very raw and stark and oppressive. There are a lot of great subtle guitar melodies that bring to mind like the very, very, very early days, the glory days of Swedish death metal, and also some of the very early material from like Cataclysm and Gorguts and some other Canadian death metal. There's a decent amount of variety to the record, which I appreciate as well. The title track in particular has a little bit of a doom metal underbelly to it. It's a legitimately pretty epic and harrowing cut. Yeah, man, I really dig this. If you're looking for just a fucking nasty smorgasbord of Canadian and Swedish death metal brutality, you cannot go wrong with this one fucking bit. Next up, and no pun intended, a pretty vile record from a band called Tombstoner entitled Victims of Vile Torture. A significantly more modern record in comparison to the aforementioned Dungeon Serpent, with a lot of groove-laden riffs, a little bit of a hardcore underbite with plenty of breakdowns, and a more modern death metal production and sound mix. But don't let that make you think it is somehow incapable of delivering the goods, because that is not the case. This thing remains utterly nasty. I'm actually really loving the production in general. Every riff is just so beefy, so gigantic. The vocals are just so fucking agonizing. The drums sound great. It's a consistently pummeling, bludgeoning experience. I think it does lose a little bit of steam on the second half, as it does start to feel a little bit repetitive, but that being said, anyone looking for some more modern death metal beatdownery should have some fun with this. Next up, we have Transmutations from Fetid Zombie, the brainchild of one Mark Riddick, an illustrator and graphic designer known for his work on the Metalocalypse cartoon, known for his work designing merchandise and album artwork and posters for the likes of Exodus, Dying Fetus, Suicide Silence, The Black Dahlia Murder, Arch Enemy, and so many more, including, believe it or not, the one, the only Justin Bieber himself back in 2016. What an absolutely fascinating and bizarre and incredible fucking resume. Holy shit. Fetid Zombie has been around for a while, but this is really the first time I've heard a full album of theirs, and honestly, I'm kinda loving it. It's a very weird, moody fusion of all kinds of spices and influences from across the death metal spectrum. It's very raw, very brutal, very much in the vein of that classic late 80s, early 90s death metal sound. There are a lot of melodic hooks, there are a lot of atmospheric passages, some doomy sprawls. Like, imagine if, like, very early Death and then, like, late 90s Death kind of fused into one, but instead of a studio album, they made a demo, but with, like, the budget and the resources of a studio album. I don't know how else to explain it. I really hope that that makes sense. The point is, it's fucking awesome. The kind of shit that I actually wish, in retrospect, I had reserved for an album review, because there's some really fun material on here. It's also genuinely pretty unpredictable, which I think is awesome because that's not something I can say for a lot of the other death metal albums we've talked about in this video. Like, even in the first track, there are some straight up Nawabum or first wave black metal influences pulled from, like, Angel Witch and Merciful Fate and, like, some early Iron Maiden, and I did not expect any of that shit. Had I given this a full review, it probably would have gotten a 4 to 5. I think this is a fucking great album. Definitely check this out. Next up, we have the Gehenna Complex, the Gehenna Complex. I don't know how it's pronounced. It's the debut EP from a band called Null Existence. This was sent to me by a fan on Instagram. If I'm not mistaken, they might also be in this band. I don't actually know. Feel free to clarify if this particular person is listening. If you're not, then don't, I guess. I don't know. That would put me in a weird position, I guess. I don't know. There's not really a lot to dissect here. It's 3 tracks, some pretty technical modern deathcore with some proggy, groovy flourishes. It's alright. It's truthfully not really the kind of thing I'm normally into, but I'm not gonna knock anything about the production or the musicianship, because it's all there. The people that like this stuff are definitely going to like this. I think myself, I'm just looking for a little bit more flavor, a little bit more intensity, and a little bit more, I don't know, spice. Yeah. My brain is like starting to freeze all of a sudden. I don't know what the fuck is going on. I think I'm tired. I think I need to go to sleep. I would say overall I do like this EP, a pretty impressive offering for a debut. If you're looking for deathcore, just some nasty deathcore with some techie twists here and there, I'd say give it a shot, why not? And finally, let's wrap this up with The Intimate Earth from Feld, an album I've heard a lot about in the past month. In fact, I've received quite a few requests to talk about this in an official album review, which, as you can probably already tell, did not happen. But hey, the beauty of the Albums I Missed format is I can talk about all these albums that I missed. It's almost as if it's literally in the fucking title. This is some pretty cool stuff, man. I can definitely see why y'all were so excited for this. It's very raw, but really lush and evocative at the same time. There are some really pretty melodies, contrasted with some really dark kind of trad and atmospheric black metal passages. There's something very tribal, savage, ritualistic about this whole thing. The strings in particular are just beautiful. I love the string work on this. Genuinely very haunting and ominous. They constantly loom over everything. The album does lose me a little bit when we start to focus on the vocals, which are just these really generic kind of black metal, death metal screams and gutturals, but everything else about the record I think is fucking fantastic. This is a band I'll have to keep a very close eye on in the future, because with the proper resources at their disposal, I've no doubt that their next studio album could be an absolute fucking banger. For now, though, I'd say Intimate Earth gets like a really strong 3.5 out of 5. If you're looking for something a little bit different from black and folk metal, definitely check this out. And voila! Those are all the albums that I feel that I missed within the month of July 2021. Now it's your turn to let me know. What other albums do you think I missed? What other albums should I be on the lookout for? Did you listen to any of these albums in particular? What did you think of them? Tell me! Make sure you press this button right here so you can subscribe to the channel so you can get updates immediately in case you somehow aren't already. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.